It was overnight that rescue workers began bringing ashore the bodies of the young Chinese who'd been trapped by the advancing tide and drowned. A hellish task for the emergency services. Eyewitnesses said the Chinese had been completely unprepared. People we've spoken to here have described the events as an accident waiting to happen. Stephen Smith, Channel 4 News, Morecambe Bay.
That dreadful tragedy on the night of February the 5th, 2004 highlighted the urgent need for the control of gangmasters, or labour providers as they're also known. The Gangmasters Licensing Authority was set up specifically to protect workers and to drive out illegal practices and exploitation within the food production industry.
Foreign workers now account for something like 95% of the sectors that we within the GLA will regulate. And quite often these workers are recruited within their own countries.
When these people are recruited, they're often required to pay a fee within their own country, and this can be quite high and will probably include the cost of travel to the UK.
Where workers are unable to find the money in relation to the travel to the UK or the fee for finding work, they're often loaned the money, and on arrival within the UK and on commencing work with the labour provider, they find themselves in debt. This actually constitutes what we call bonded labour, as the worker feels that they are unable to leave the employ of that particular employer until the debt has been repaid. This question of debt can often leave the worker extremely vulnerable in terms of the weekly repayment. In examples we've come across, threats have been made to either the worker directly, to the worker's family within the UK, or to the worker's family within their country of origin.
Licensing labour providers will hopefully put an end to these practices, and since October 2006 it's become a criminal offence for a labour provider not to have a licence, and from December 2006 for a labour user to use workers from an unlicensed provider. So exactly who needs a licence? Well, if you supply labour to agriculture, horticulture, gathering shellfish or processing, and packing food, agricultural and fish produce, then you need to have a licence. There are two ways to apply for a licence. You can either complete the online application on the GLA website, www.gla.gov.uk, or telephone the GLA helpline on 0845 602 5020. There's also a useful booklet which explains all this and which also contains details of the information you'll need to supply and full instructions. But applying for and getting a licence is only the first step. Complying with it is the most important part, and GLA will carry out inspections to ensure that this is being done. Failure to comply can mean your licence being revoked, heavy fines, and in the worst cases, up to 10 years imprisonment. This is now UK law, and the GLA is totally committed to arresting and prosecuting offenders. At GLA, we've developed a risk profile system which enables us to determine which are the most risky businesses. We also receive information from other sources, such as local government, police, and other similar bodies. But to maintain a fair approach, our enforcement officers will also carry out random compliance inspections. If you're employed as a worker, you're entitled to a worker's rights. These include a written contract, a national minimum wage, fair and legal deductions from your wage slip, 4 weeks paid holiday a year, safe and legal accommodation, safe and legal transport, a safe working environment, and to be treated fairly and equally. On the subject of safe and legal transport, because migrant workers depend on their agencies or gangmasters to transport them to jobs, which often involves unsociable hours in remote locations, charging inflated rates for this transport is one of the ways unscrupulous agents use to claw back wages from their foreign workers. And at 5 a.m. on Tuesday the 14th of February 2007, 6 people, including 5 migrant workers, were killed in a head-on crash on the A52 in Lincolnshire. It was the latest in a series of incidents in which migrant workers have been killed or injured while being ferried to and from work. Some unscrupulous labour providers house their workers in appalling conditions in dilapidated buildings. If the local authorities evict them for overcrowding in one slum, the neighbours say the gangmasters simply set them up in another slum round the corner.
Legitimate workers are often convinced by unscrupulous employers that if they report abuse, they will be deported from the UK.
But this is certainly not the case, because all information is treated in the strictest confidence. So, if you feel your employer is exploiting you by not complying with any of these things, then it's in your interest to let GLA know about it by phoning us on 0845 602 5020 or Crime Stoppers on 0800 555 111. We don't need your evidence, we just need to know where and when to go to find the evidence ourselves. Finally, it's important to realise that licensing gangmasters is a positive, not a negative move, and it's in everyone's interest, because it means that everyone is operating on a level playing field. Legitimate labour providers will not be undercut by rivals paying less than the minimum wage or avoiding tax.
With the bringing of the licence, I'm sure it's improved in the respect that in the past, without the licence, people used to go to work for less money than they should do. And I think with the licence it will definitely make sure that they don't.
One thing is for sure, the work of the GLA will make Britain a safer place for those who come to work here to help us live the sort of lives we enjoy. We're determined to drive out those who want to exploit workers and to help those who want to employ them properly to do so without being undercut by rogues who prey not just on the workers but on the public at large. We're determined to work with the public and with all the other agencies to make Britain the sort of place that we can be proud of. The GLA is going to make a difference.